Police officers of Reddit, what was the silliest thing you've heard from someone trying to avoid a ticket for speeding? Not a cop, but a buddy of mine is, and he likes to tell a story about a guy who flipped his car over on I-75 going through Detroit. Apparently the guy was wasted, looked like he hadn't bathed in weeks, the car was totaled, there were beer cans strewn all over the highway, and while the various officers who responded were debating over who had to take custody of this wreck of a human being, he walked up to them and said, "Hey guys, I totally understand if you just want to let me go." Not a cop, but my sh*t mobile broke, so was borrowing my mum's Lexus. Cruising along, see police lights, look back at speedometer, I'm pushing 80 on a road that is normally a 45, so just pull over. Cop finally catches up, goes through the whole ordeal, paperwork, do you know why I pulled you over, etc. Explain that it's my mum's car and I'm not used to something that can get out of its own way, and apologize for going so fast. Describe my shitty car to him and he just laughs, says he has seen it around town before, and commented on how it was such a T***RD. Let me go with a verbal warning. This happened to my husband. I warned him when we bought a new car this summer that I didn't realize how fast I was going during the test drive. We replaced our almost 20-year-old Toyota Recco with over 200k miles that finally crapped out, and you could barely have conversations in that car on the highway. So guess who passed a cop going 90 in a 70 on the way home from work? He got a warning when the cops saw we really had only bought the car less than a week prior, lol. I drive a minivan and, on a flat stretch of lonely road, got clocked going well over the speed limit in my fiance's turbocharged VW. Cop asked why I was in such a hurry and I explained that I wasn't. I was just used to driving my old minivan and couldn't even tell I was going that fast. He laughed and let me go with a warning. Not a police officer, and not my story, but funny. From the law firm partner who trained me, client is driving home from a court hearing 2 hours away with attorney in passenger seat. Gets stopped for doing 10 to 15 over the limit on freeway. Cop approaches and client opens with, "Officer, I'm terribly sorry, I was speeding. Probably 10 miles over the limit. You can write me a ticket if you need to, but please do it quickly. You see, I have my attorney in the car and he's charging me $400 hour until I drop him off." Cop said it was the best excuse he'd heard in months. Told him to slow down and get home safely, but let them off with no ticket or write-up. I got pulled over when I was 39 weeks pregnant because I didn't signal while turning into a gas station at 2 a.m. I was going to pick up a friend who needed a ride and a place to sleep, but baby shifted and I was 10 seconds away from peeing my pants. I was already unbuckled and leaving the car. I yelled at him. He could give me any ticket he wanted, but I have to pee first, as I waddled as fast as I could into the gas station. When I got back he was just standing there looking awkward, asked if I felt better, told me to remember my signal and left. I ran out of gas while 38 weeks pregnant. I think I went into labor 3 days later or so. It was in a dangerous hour with no shoulder. So I put my hazard lights in the bus lane and started waddling to the nearest gas station. The cop met me at the gas station and insisted on driving me back to the car. Apparently in the time I was waddling, the 911 board lit up about a pregnant lady on the side of the road. I was ugly crying, and the police officer ended up actually filling my car. Not a cop, but I had one laugh in my face when I was 19 and got caught speeding. I was doing 75 on the highway at night in an area that has signs that indicate the speed limit is 70 during the day, but 60 at night. I legitimately didn't know I was speeding because of this incident. When I was a kid, my dad was kind of a speed demon, and I was a snitch of a kid. One night on this same stretch of highway I looked over and saw him driving about 80, and I pointed out that the sign said the speed limit was 60 at night. My dad told me, not missing a beat, that rule only applies to 18-wheelers, and I believed him. 10 plus years later, this cop pulled me over and pointed out the lower speed limit at night, and I looked him dead in the eye and said, "My dad told me that only applies to trucks." The cop started laughing. My genuine confusion and embarrassment apparently convinced him, though, because he didn't write a ticket. I was a physicist at an engineering school and the older faculty liked to tell the story of a long gone graduate student who tried to get cute with a police officer. He was speeding, going some 20 over the limit on I-95, and gets pulled over, and the cop asks him why he was speeding, etc. etc. Being a physicist, he explains that the sudden cold snap overnight caused his tire pressure to fall, and he was speeding because the faster rotation of the wheels increases the heat and pressure within the tire, and it was safer to be driving slightly faster on pressurized tires than at the speed limit on underinflated tires. The cop, amused, asked if what he said about tire pressures and speeding was true, and the young grad student replies, "Yes, absolutely, I'm a physicist at MIT." The cop then goes back to his vehicle and returns with 2 tickets, one for speeding, and one for knowingly driving with underinflated tires, driving an impaired vehicle or something like that. Needless to say, this poor fellow became a very good example of times when intelligence is not a substitute for wisdom, and why it's poor form to flaunt your education to get out of being in a shut in traffic or otherwise. I'm not a cop, but I said something stupid to one and actually got out of a ticket. It was at night on the highway, one lane due to construction, and I was going the speed limit. Some asshole decided to tailgate me pretty bad, as in I couldn't even see their headlight. I sped up, and they did as well. By the time construction ended we were going 90-100 miles per hour. I tuned up to my exit and Mr. Asshole was still following me, slowing down to stop, and blue lights light up. I told him I thought he was just some dick tailgating me or something. I got chewed out and he left. I never got a ticket. Was riding with a friend of mine one night on the maiden voyage. After he installed a V8 in his Pontiac Fiero, got pulled over, and the cop walked up and says, "I stopped you because I clocked you doing 76 and a 55 buddy. Says you should get that radar thing checked. It's not accurate." Cop says, "We calibrated twice per shift etc. Buddy says, "No, you don't understand. If it says we were doing 76, it's not working right. Cause we were doing just over 100. Cop fell over laughing. Said he's been a cop for 17 years and no one has ever argued that they were going faster than he clocked them, and wrote a warning. I got nabbed for blowing a stop sign that was in the middle of nowhere and you could see both directions for miles. Cop was upset and says, "You're driving an 18-wheeler and just ran that stop sign. What have you got to say for yourself?" All I can say is that was pretty stupid to run a stop sign in front of you. Dude wrote me a warning for not lying and saying I didn't run it. A friend was given court documents that needed to be presented to judge 200 miles away to stop a deportation that night. Not only did he not get a ticket, the police escorted him and contacted the force in the next county, so the escort continued until he got there. At one point he couldn't keep up with them because they were driving too fast for him. Cop, not a speeding ticket, but arrested a guy for DUI. He was quiet enough, but once he got inside the jail and the booking process started, he screamed, "Hey, am I being detained?" "No, you're being arrested actually. It happened some time ago." "Oh, yeah, well, I'd like to see you pigs just try and bring me to jail." "We already did, sir. In fact, you're almost done being booked." "Oh well, next time won't be so easy." Kind of the opposite, but I once had a cop pull me over for speeding, and he asked me if I had any decent reason at all why I was speeding. The way he said it, it seemed he didn't really want to give me a ticket. All of my pre-planned excuses went out the window and I kind of stammered up, no good reason. I certainly didn't expect a get out of jail free card, so to speak, so he knocked it down to the minimum and gave me the ticket. He actually seemed disappointed in me, lol. At the time, I couldn't understand why he was so generous, but I found out later that when my plates got run, it came up that I had a restricted carry permit for firearms. I was an armored car guard at the time, and where I live the only people that get those carry permits are guards and trappers who live way up north. Given that I had the permit, it was obvious to him that I was a somewhat law-abiding citizen, besides driving like Jason Bourne in a car chase. I was let off for speeding all the time when working, but that is a different set of circumstances. Not a cop, but IDK why he let me go. I got stopped at 5 AM for a morning shift and was telling him I'm sorry for going 10 miles above the speed limit. Sounds super scared. Going 35 in a 25. Turns out I got stopped for running a red stop sign. I outed myself out. It was dark, I couldn't see. He just looked at my license and just said just watch out next time. It was in a nicer neighborhood compared to the ghetto one I used to live. A friend of mine worked with cases where people appealed to get a ticket removed. Don't know how you say it in English. He told me a story, not about a speeding ticket, but a parking ticket. Apparently a guy had doubled park. He got the ticket and appealed to have it removed. His excuse: he had diarrhea and had to run to the toilet, so he didn't have the chance to park the right way. So because of his diarrhea he shouldn't have to pay the ticket. Needless to say, the parked ticket wasn't removed. He still had to pay. So my mother got out of a ticket one time by an unmarked car by continuing to speed through the neighborhood all the way to our house. The whole time she's coaching me to get out of car as fast as I can. When we pull up and go inside, she told the cop I had to pee. I think I was 9 or 10. Not a cop, but my bro-in-law got pulled over for texting and driving, and when the cop asked why he was texting he said, "I work for a senator and it seems so it's pretty important." The cop responded, "I'm sorry, you find your job more important than your life and the lives of others. Here's your ticket." He tried to tell us the story to make the cop look bad, and we shit on him for being irresponsible, and he no longer texts and drives, so wins all around. I was driving home from seeing Invincible, the Mark Wahlberg movie about the Eagles kicker. On the highway at 11:30, I was scooting like 100 miles per hour in a 60. I just crested a ride and the radar detector went off, and I saw headlights in the median come on. So I just immediately pull over. Though if he's not after me, he will just drove past. If he is, well, here I am. Sure enough, he pulls in behind me and puts his lights on, asks me where I was coming from, what the rush was about. Also said, "I appreciate you pulling over like that." I tell him I'm trying to get back to town to buy my friend a drink on her 21st birthday, not at 12:05 the next morning. We chat for a little bit. He asked how the movie was. Got off with a verbal warning, and he even told me where his friend was about 10 miles up the road. Oh, I love telling this story. It comes from a family friend who works with campus security or something. 2 guys from the college where he works were caught driving recklessly by him, and it turns out that passenger just tested positive with COVID and was supposed to be quarantined. So he had slightly drunk, definitely hungover friend drive him to the liquor store. You know, as you do. He just admits that he tested positive and wanted to go to the liquor store at 10 AM on a Tuesday with his vaguely intoxicated friend driving, who probably has COVID as well. People are fucking stupid. Obligatory not a cop. Are there any in this thread? When I was a toddler, my dad was driving me home from somewhere and I was getting cranky, so he offered me a box of Smarties. For US readers, this was in Canada, where Smarties are more like M&Ms. A few minutes later, he got pulled over for speeding, and apparently I offered the police officers some Smarties. My dad got away with just a warning, and more importantly, I was not charged with bribing a police officer. Got pulled over for tailgating a sheriff, and was promptly pulled over. When asked why I was tailgating him, I simply said, "Well, you were going faster than the rest of traffic and I want to get home faster." He just sat there for half a second and looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Usually when I get my ass ridden someone is pulling my hair as well," and hands my back my license. He was as bald a bowling ball. Working in a destination location, I get a lot of "oh, I'm not from here." I tend to take that if I can confirm they are not. No sense in making somebody come back for court, if they even would, from hours away. Unless it's just Tina's speed. Funniest response? Stopped someone for 72 in a 55. Out of state tags, near the interstate that runs into town. Middle-aged black woman, super sweet looking, like lunch lady in middle school that calls you honey, kinda sweet looking. I asked her if she had noticed the speed limit changed, and she said oh yes. Surprised me because that's usually the option, to say oh no I didn't, because I never noticed it when I first moved here, and I believe it when people say they didn't see it lol. Anyways, I asked her what the reason for her speed was in that case. She said, my friend told me one time that the cops here were some of the best looking on this side of the Mississippi. Kinda caught me off guard and got a pretty solid chuckle out of me, and before I could speak again she said, and she was right shrug, she was right. I hope the rest are as cute as you. It hit the spot. I told her to slow down so one of the ugly ones don't give her a ticket and to enjoy her time here. Cleared the stop and couldn't help but notice the enormous smile on my face. Absolutely made my week and gave me that lunch lady calling me honey feeling 10/10ths would stop again. I've had some crazy excuses for other stops not relating to speeding. I was delivering food when I was in college. Think was 99. Political signs everywhere. The ramp to get off onto one of our main streets was covered in signs. I ended up cutting a cop off because I didn't see him, was obstructed by the signs. He goes through the normal, you know why I pulled you over, need your papers, etc. I was so surprised that he was there, actually startled me. He asked where I was coming from. I could barely name the restaurant, think DoorDash, but 20 years prior, we were room service express. He takes my stuff and goes back to his car. We did everything over CB to our main office. I'll let them know I am probably going to be late delivering the food. A few minutes pass, he comes back, hands me my ID and insurance, says, you make sure you slow down and look even though there can be obstructions. He gets back in his car and takes off. Thought I was getting a ticket, but got lucky by someone else's bad day. There was a shooting, so he had to go. Was in traffic court when this black man was next charged with running through a stop sign at 80 miles/hr. He approached the bench and the judge asked him if he wanted to say anything before he came up with a judgment. The guy said this, Your Honor, I was having car problems and my car wouldn't start. I was dead on the street when this stranger happened by and offered to give me a push. I accepted, but he was pushing me too fast. I signaled for him to slow down by waving my arm out the window. He misinterpreted my signal I guess, because he started pushing me faster and faster. I was waving my arm furiously and desperately to slow down, but he kept increasing the speed until I ran through the stop sign. The judge was cracking up laughing at the end of this man's pleading. Do you expect me to believe that you went through a stop sign without even slowing down any at 80 miles/hr because this person was pushing you too fast? Yes, Your Honor. The judge let him off with no penalty for making his day with a creative, magnificent story and lightening up the tension in the courtroom. A cop pulled one of my brothers over on his first drive with a new license. The cop asks him to step out of the vehicle and stand next to the front tire. The cop says, I'm arresting you for indecent exposure. My brother asks, what are you talking about? The cop says, your hubcap is missing and your nuts are showing. This was back in the day when officers enjoyed a little taste now and then. I got nabbed doing over 100 on a brand new bike the day after passing my motorbike test. I'd been driving for a decade and rode a lot off-road. Cop who pulled me over gave a very long spiel along the lines of, oh dear sir, brand new license, pretty expensive that. New bike too, how much was that? Nice new leathers too, pretty steep eh? You're going to feel like a right prat when the court takes your license off you and you can't use any of it, aren't you? After about 20 minutes he wrapped up with, well, I get the feeling you're not stupid enough to do that again are you? And let me go. He was right though, I didn't do it again. I got pulled over once by my house. I had a WRX-T at the time, and that car could go and stop fast. I'm going down a 35 miles per hour road probably doing 55, and I see a local cop out of the corner of my eye on the side of the road. I stomp on the brakes which make a horrendous racket, because they are stone cold. But I pass him at 35. I see him pull out, and he pulls me over lights flashing. Walks up to the car, and asks me how's your brakes? I respond without thinking oh they work really well. He did his best to keep from laughing, and gave me a verbal warning. Finished off with keep an eye on those brakes.